Hi, and welcome to Animalia the Podcast. I'm Natasha, and thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to check out the website animaliathepod.weebly.com for archived episodes. Search Animalia the Pod on your favorite podcast platform, or SoundCloud or YouTube every Friday fortnight, except today, for a new episode. You should also like and follow the Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you'd like to appear on the podcast, send me an email at animaliathepod@gmail.com. This week on Animalia, there's no interview, as today, the 10th of May, marks 1 year since my cat Toro was killed by two dogs who strayed from their home. What I will do, however, is share the contents of a letter I sent to my local government and parliamentary representatives, as well as several ministers of government, telling them of what happened to my family on that day, about the response I received from police, and about the solution I proposed to ease the burden on rescue organizations and provide a consistent, localized service for the care and protection of animals. This letter was penned on the 4th of June 2020 and addressed to the Attorney General, copied to the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, the Minister of National Security, the Chairman of the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and the Councillor for Diamond Vale. It reads, Dear Attorney General, I write as a citizen and member of the Diamond Vale community in search of answers and solutions to the national concern for the care and protection of animals. My specific matter pertains to two stray dogs which breached my neighbor's property to attack and kill one of my cats on the morning of 10 May 2020. In the midst of my grief at losing a member of my family, I have made all the relevant reports and complaints to the police, the community street captains, the TTSPCA, and the Diego Martin Regional Corporation for immediate assistance to contain or remove the animals, and or to charge the owner of the animals as required by the Dog Control Act and Summary Offences Act. While I intend to pursue my matter to its conclusion, I am equally concerned about the larger issue that the mechanisms, systems, and resources that compel local authorities to act on reports of cruelty or other mistreatment of animals are woefully inadequate, and in the case of dog control units at each corporation, non-existent. This is what I hope to change. I have since written to and met with the Councillor Keita James and Chairman Simon de Nobrega in an attempt to trigger a wider response. My communication was respectfully handled, and I await their promised actions to upscale my report to the West End Police Station through the municipal police. It is imperative that the police are held accountable for their non-enforcement of the laws regarding straying and or out-of-control animals. Otherwise, what's the point of enhanced legislation? The local government officials also promised to examine how the corporation can best allocate its resources to provide much-needed dog-catching services to its purchasers. Following up on those actions and discussions, and in furtherance of my search for justice, and in light of the woeful response to my report at West End, I started an online petition on 22nd of May to garner support for the matter to be addressed by the municipal police attached to the DMRC. The list of supporters, 723 to date, and their comments are enclosed for the Attorney General. The ordeal and frustrations I have endured since 10th of May have compounded my resolve to prompt action on a national level. I will now address the specific gaps that exist, as well as the possible solutions. Straying animals. Although the Summary Offences Act speaks to the need for owners to have control over animals, there is little to no enforcement of the law. Some of the large population of strays are lost, but many more are homeless. This problem speaks to the non-existent regulations for owning an animal in the first place, as most do not accept the necessary responsibilities. Many owners do not spay or neuter the animals, causing them to roam, reproduce, and increase the stray population. Law enforcement. The police service regulars clearly are not willing or able to enforce animal control law. To be fair, they are inhibited by the paucity of reports of animal cruelty and other similar crimes, making them unlikely to act unless they are knowledgeable of existing law. I therefore suggest that the municipal police officers play a role in enforcement as part of the animal control units I will describe later. Veterinarians. I was fortunate to be able to take my cat to a veterinarian immediately after the attack in the hope of saving his life. It was at 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday when I made the phone call, which was answered to my immense relief. However, had the vet been mandated to contact police upon examining the animal and learning of how the injury occurred, the ideal opportunity is presented for the police to visit the clinic, speak to the owner and attending vet, and gather evidence almost immediately. This may accelerate the process of holding the owner/owners of the offending animal to account. Animal control at the local government level. Apart from the TTSPCA and a few other shelters, there are dozens of citizens who provide the service of rescuing injured or homeless animals, sheltering them in many cases in their own homes, and adopting them out to caring homes. None of the established organizations who do this non-stop, tireless work are for-profit entities. It is time for government to institutionalize the support provided to these NGOs in the form of an annual subvention to carry out their important work. In an amended regime, the NGOs can therefore work alongside the regional/city corporations through the animal control units to achieve the following: to provide essential services using animal welfare experts, such as rescue and impounding of animals who have been abandoned, are homeless, or are dangerous; to implement an electronic system for rehoming and adoption of animals in their care; to provide robust enforcement of offences under the Summary Offences Act and Dog Control Act using municipal police officers; to provide accessible and relevant education to burgesses about the proper care and protection of animals, including food, shelter, spay and neuter, and medical attention; to conduct research on the pet population and additional services that may be required to serve them. The gaps that exist in the national framework for animal welfare must be filled urgently. Legislation is useless without enforcement, regulation, and prevention services. Those elected and appointed to positions of authority to manage animal welfare issues must be held accountable to do so. I trust that I will receive confirmation of receipt of this correspondence and updates on any discussions held thereon. Regards, Natasha Nunez. I received 2 replies to this correspondence from the Ministers of Agriculture and Local Government. The latter advised that I should write to the former, which I obviously did as all the agencies were copied. And the former drew my attention to the Animals, Diseases and Importation Act, which proposes, albeit in a very limited fashion, to deal with the problem of straying animals. I've started to reply on many occasions, but haven't been able to manage the anger in my tone, which I know will not be useful to bring them over to my side. Until I can dispassionately flatter to deceive these politicians, I will not be writing again. What I might do is approach some on the other side. Maybe they would lend a more sympathetic ear. I'm reminded at this time of the lyrics of an Alanis Morissette song.
And all I really want is some patience, a way to calm the angry voice. And all I really want is deliverance. Do I wear you out?
My commentary this week is a letter to the editor that I wrote to mark the anniversary of Toro's untimely death. If it doesn't appear in any of the papers, at least I have this platform to share it, right? The letter is under the headline, Still No Justice for Animals. While the onset of a global pandemic in March 2020 is the milestone most of us recall, does anyone remember the black dog hung from a tree until dead, her suffering recorded by the perpetrators and posted on social media as entertainment? 2 persons were arrested, charged, and brought before the court for animal cruelty offences. Both men were let off the proverbial hook and fined $400 because, I'm told, the revised law that prescribes a $100,000 fine and or 6 months imprisonment had not been assented to when the crime was committed. While many animal lovers called for harsher justice, I lamented the punitive approach of which we are so fond, arguing that instead of paying a fine to the state, the funds should be donated to an animal welfare organization where the guilty parties should volunteer for the same duration as the prison sentence. Since this landmark case, not one person has been held accountable for an offence of cruelty against an animal, although many have been reported, including by the writer. I will mark an anniversary of my own on the 10th of May, for which justice also remains elusive. A year ago on that day, 2 straying dogs mauled my cat Toro in a neighbour's front yard, mere inches away from ours. I too sought justice for this offence, but to date, none is forthcoming. Every time I see an ad for the TTPS app, I cringe. Simply submit the information via the app, they said, but I had to make a report in person at the station. If you're not making an anonymous report, the police will come to you, the soothing female voice declares. Not once did a police officer visit my home. To their credit, my constituency and local government representative did visit, and my husband and I relayed our concerns, not just about the police response, but for the lingering threat posed by the dogs, which continue to roam freely. I even proposed a solution to establish an animal control unit in the regional corporation to effect consistent, community-focused animal control, rescue and adoption, while investigating and prosecuting via the municipal police any contraventions of animal cruelty law. Of course, I was not taken seriously by my representatives nor the relevant government ministers to whom I also wrote to propose the idea. As with far too many matters in Trinidad and Tobago, you have to know someone, preferably high up on the food chain, in order to receive justice. Elected officials and law enforcement remain unaccountable to the citizens they serve, and as a result, animals and those who care about them continue to suffer cruelty and inhumane living, or rather dying, conditions. On Monday, I will mark Toro's death by releasing an episode of my podcast, Animalia, in the hope that my advocacy via this medium will preserve some hope in our collective humanity and that justice, in the truest sense of the word, will prevail in the end. Many thanks, as always, to Elspeth Duncan of Venus Goddess of Love, an absolute warrior whose energy, drive and spirit for human and animal alike continues to inspire me. She's the reason I started this podcast, and her support has been invaluable as I continue the journey. I also want to thank my husband Garth for being at my side throughout the ordeal, and most importantly for me, developing a deeper bond with our remaining cats, Coco, Chanel and Thierry. Seeing those relationships get stronger every day means so much more than he knows. As the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, I should also thank my therapist who diagnosed the depression which I had been living with since my father died, and the anxiety that surfaced to ridiculous proportions since the 10th of May 2020. While I still suffer with these disorders, I'm learning how to manage the thoughts and feelings that rage in my head and body. Join us again in 2 weeks for another interview with an amazing person doing their part to advance the cause of animal welfare. I'm Natasha, and until next time, take good care and remember, love off your pets. Bye-bye.